Hi, welcome to another episode of I Own a Business, where we focus on helping practice owners grow the practice of their dreams. I'm your host, Dr. Steve Vargo, and I have with me Dr. Barton Higley. Barton is owner of iWorks in New Hampshire, a two-doctor practice. You're in the process of building a new building, it sounds like. Definitely got some stuff keeping you busy right now.
Yeah, definitely. We actually just got into the building, Steve. Yeah.
Sounds great. How you been?
Doing great. Yeah, it's been a long road for last 2 years. It's been pretty crazy.
Well, we're not going to talk about your building, but we are going
Right.
to talk about something that I think we're going to try to cover a topic today that I don't think a lot of ODs give a lot of thought to, and that is what labs they use. And ironically, that seems to be a pain point for a lot of doctors. I hear a lot of doctors complain about the labs they use, or maybe even the labs we should say that they're forced to use in some cases. And for those that aren't aware, IDOC wanted to provide members with a better option. And about a year ago, we combined with a lab called Three Rivers Optical to form a company dedicated to serving independent eye care practices. And I had the opportunity to visit their lab in Pittsburgh a few months ago. And I know that your staff had the same opportunity a few weeks ago. So I understand you weren't able to go. You had another obligation, but I'm curious to hear what your staff's experience sounded like.
No, absolutely. Actually, it kind of started because we wanted to look. We were obviously looking into this lab, and we weren't quite happy with our current lab. And we had gone through a couple labs prior, and this time we're like, my manager said, okay, well, I want to see it this time. I want to see how everything works. So what they said was, what they were really impressed was with the first off, the goals were kind of put up front. That turnaround time was huge for us. And right when they walked in, just on a whiteboard, they had 2.5 days. And they had met with the manager, really impressed with them. And for me, it was the facility. I really wanted them to find out if what they were saying, because about the infrastructure was sound. And my biggest concern with the lab, because we've had sort of been burned in the past, was, okay, so we've got this integration with, IDOC, many members. Do they have the infrastructure in place in order to handle increase in volume? And it was pretty impressive. They have a lot of capacity that they have in the lab. So that was the biggest thing, was infrastructure. So
Yeah, and they've added a lot to it.
right.
And I guess, like a lot of ODs, I never really put a lot of thought into what goes on at a lab. It's just sort of this mysterious place you send glasses off to, and then they magically return, you know,
Right.
days later with lenses in them. But we don't put a lot of thought. But I was really impressed with the, and we'll get a little bit more into that as we go
Sure.
along. With the environment and the culture, and like you
Yeah.
said, the technology, the infrastructure,
Right.
and the amount of work that goes in. I mean, some of it's very automated, but there's still a lot of hands-on components to that as well. So as I alluded to before, I don't think we give a lot of thought to labs, with the exception being until there's a problem, right?
Right.
Um, you switching labs,
Right.
or at least looking for different alternatives. What problems were you trying to solve at the time?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, when we started, so I bought the practice in 2016, and we came into this lab. It was, I thought it was really good, and they did a great job for a couple of years. But something with management changed. A higher up, particularly the president, had changed, and it was very evident in terms of what their next mission was, which was to aggressively expand. Which at the time it's like, okay, well, fine. They're still doing fine for us. We get our jobs in, just like you said, magical place, and it comes back. But we've slowly found the reps changing. The reps coming in were really inexperienced, and one was particularly assigned to us. Really didn't know much about the optical industry at all. I think she was maybe 3 months in, 6 months in. I can't say exactly, but it comes down to when we have problems. First off, statements. Statements are really confusing, especially with these labs. And you have these discounts, and we need to just help reading statements. And she wasn't able to do that for us. Not to mention problems, if we send a job out and they came back poor quality, she wasn't really on top of it. And so that was our first step, was choosing another lab. So we moved on to lab two. Lab two, again, was great for a while. They were bought out and by a very large optical company. And, it was just very clear, once they started, once they started the integration, the jobs were coming back really poor. Actually, one week we had like 14 jobs come in and 10 of them didn't pass our inspection. And, it's just a nightmare for a while. So, our biggest thing, what we wanted to solve was that, I guess, what's the company growth plan? We wanted a stable lab. We're sick of changing. It's a huge undertaking sometimes. And we've got to, we commit to it. We commit to a product. We learn everything about the progressive, the products, and, we wanted to ensure there was some stability going forward. So, our biggest thing, when yes, we use Three Rivers, and the biggest thing that we had was exactly like, who's at the helm, what's their infrastructure plan, what's their 5-10 year plan, and biggest thing was, does their business model align with my practice model, and the promise I made to my current and future patients. So it's, we wanted to ensure, like I said before, that they had things in place in order to take the volume. The quality was a big thing for us, coming back. They had to pass inspection. They had to deliver great quality, customer service as well. So there's a number of things there.
You start looking for the reasons why some of these labs are struggling. And I think it does, it brings you back to looking at the culture of the lab. Capacity seems to be an issue. And I imagine labs are not unique to a lot of other industries where capacity, I think, has probably become maybe a challenge for certain other labs. And it's something that really stood out to me in my visit at Three Rivers was the people that were there. And a lot of them had been there for years. I mean, a lot of them had basically spent their career there. So there was a lot of pride that went into that workplace. And you don't see that everywhere.
Right.
And I think a lot of that comes down from the leadership as well. I know that the owner of the company puts his personal phone number on every invoice that goes out. If that tells you anything about the leadership of the company. So what do you, maybe just building on that a little bit, what do you value in a lab? Again, I think it's one of those things where we don't really give much consideration to a lab till something goes wrong. But maybe what do you value in a lab? And maybe that will give some other ODs listening some ideas in their mind that maybe there's some things they hadn't thought of, but they should be thinking of.
Absolutely. I mean, so like I said before, I mean, it wasn't until we had, I guess, 2 failed attempts, I suppose, on a lab, that I really started looking into, just like I said, who's at the helm and what's the next step. I really love the idea that Three Rivers was basically bought by IDOC. The idea that, we know that they're an independent now, and we don't have this other large optical distributor that's going to purchase and make major changes. I even heard from our past labs that the president made a statement that, if we lose clients, we'll just get new ones. It's like, what? I mean, does that jive with your business model? I mean, is that what you say about your patients? So, I mean, when it comes down to practically, when the rubber hits the road, it's really, what's in it, I guess, for the practice, what's in it for our patients. It's the customer service, the quality. Are they willing to negotiate? Their rep support, turnaround time, like I said, our statement's easy to read. It doesn't have to be A+ in all those categories, but we just kind of, trying to align what's like your brand, like how are you going to best deliver your brand? Is this company that you, probably for all of us, probably the biggest check we write every month, aside from our payroll, is this going to, align with what you're trying to do in your own, with your own vision, with your own practice? So I would say those are a few of the points there. Those are the big ones for us.
I think it's fair to look at really any third party that you do business with is holding them to the same expectations you hold yourself in your practice too. So when we look at some of these things like customer service, and again, in my visit to Three Rivers, what I saw was an incredible investment in technology. And there was a significant investment in time and money into investing into upgrading the facility and the equipment, but also the investment in people.
Yeah.
And really, these things should be relatable to most optometry practices in terms of, are you continually investing into the equipment and technology, and continually investing into the people? And it sounds like you had an experience with a few other labs where that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, it was just going back to like, okay, when there's a problem. So when we're always talking about labs, I always hear from ODs, it's okay, are we going to save $5 here, $5 there? And that's fine. I think everybody, it's more important than ever, with cost of goods, to really, do a great job with that in our practice. It comes down to our bottom line. But what we don't see is the unrealized. It's like, okay, so you have a difficult patient scenario. Somebody's not getting used to a progressive. Are you going to be able to call somebody at that lab and talk to them and say, listen, this is what's happening. What do you suggest? And particularly with our difficulty right now, at least with our practice for hiring new good talent, we're putting a lot of energy into our own talents and doing a great job with our team. But hiring qualified people has been a little bit of a challenge. I've heard that been a pain point for a lot of people. You want somebody on the other end with a lot of knowledge base, especially bringing in somebody who's, outside of the industry that you want to train up, hire for attitude, train for aptitude. Do you have a partner that's going to help you with that? And so that was the customer service aspect that we're talking about. The statements too, do we have, so if we're not looking and reconciling our statements as a practice, there's a lot of money on the table. They're not perfect. And every month for every lab I've been to, there's always okay, yeah, we didn't get this discount. We didn't get this discount. So you have your own team reconciling it. And if there's a problem, when are you going to get that money back? Is there going to be somebody you're going to talk to that, is okay, we're taking off the next statement, or, they're going to be able to work it through with you. So those are the type of things that, really, I think if we talk about dollars and cents, that really saves the practice in the long run and helps deliver the quality care that you promised your patients, so.
Something they really emphasize is their turnaround times.
Yeah.
Could you speak to that? Because I think that's another source of frustration for a lot of practices. It's not just that the work is being done bad, but the work is gone for a long time. And who is the patient always going to blame? They're never going to blame the lab. They're always going to blame the practice. And There's been a real priority with Three Rivers on turnaround times.
Yep. So that was what they had stated in the beginning. And, it's proven out, definitely. We tested it for a little bit, and they've certainly proven out. 2.5, I can't speak to the exact 2.5 days, but I know that's the goal. But it's certainly a lot quicker than we had with other labs. It's nice to know that they're actively focusing on the promise. It's just not okay, we're going to be the fastest turnaround time. Okay, we'll prove it. Let's see. And they, it's embedded with the culture. They obviously had that, posted up for people to, in their staff to keep an eye on. And, and it's been very, very quick for us.
It's such a difference between what you described a minute ago, because no business is perfect. And having spent several days in Pittsburgh at that lab, I was able to be a part of meetings where people are asking, what can we do better? What are our weaknesses? How do we fix that? What could we be doing better? Those are the questions that practices should be asking as well. But when you see somebody get up and say, well, if we lose somebody, we'll just get somebody else. That, to me, that really doesn't address the problem. You're really not looking inward at what do we need to get better at. So again, I think a lot of this goes back to culture. And that's what I hope people understand with the lab, that it doesn't have to just be this sort of anonymous place that doesn't really matter where we send it, but yet there's real people, real technology attached to the places that you're sending the work, and your patients are depending on you. If it doesn't go right, they're going to blame you. So partner with people that are going to, you can hold them to the same expectations that you hold yourself to. Something else I was able to do on my visit, I spent a day with one of the reps going around to different offices. And it was really interesting because I never had that perspective before of being in the car. I was the doctor and the rep was coming in. Do you utilize the reps? Do you find them to be a good resource?
Absolutely. We definitely do. One in particular, she's been great for us. And we had two inexperienced opticians that she's been really helping us, get them up and going. And so right now they're about to pick their ABO test, which is really we're really happy about. So, but she's helped facilitate that along the way, and always there for questions, always there for like I say, difficult patient scenarios.
And being on the other side of that, that's something I hope more doctors give consideration to as well, is utilizing the reps as a resource. And I've been there, and I know when the practice gets busy, sometimes the last thing you want to see is another rep coming in.
Right.
Carving out that time to utilize those resources when they come in, I think is a valuable use of the time. Before we had talked before, and you had written something up, and I read it, and there's something on there I'm just going to ask you to expand on a little bit, or maybe, give some examples if you have any. And it was, we can reach out for questions, work through difficult patients, and even work to meet specific high patient demands. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, high patient demands would come down to, everybody knows we've got adaptation with progressive lenses, and we make these we make these good promises to our patients. We're going to help fix their vision, obviously, but it's when we have somebody as a non-adaptive progressive, and maybe they want particularly a certain demand, like they need extra reading, extra intermediates, whatever, and we can't solve that. It's excellent that we have a resource there to talk to, and they're just another mind that's been in the industry, in some cases a lot longer than some of our staff. And I hate it where we can't solve something for a patient. At least give them a direction, if and so if we're able to gather as many resources as possible, that's really what we're about here. So I would say that's what I meant by that. But I saw difficult, I don't mean difficult patients as like just, I don't know, unreasonable, but I just meant like difficult scenarios, that we run into. I think, for me particular, we're so in date with the medical side now. I'm sort of humbly saying that, that optical side, I tend to rely on a lot of our opticians and, and our reps, to help with that. So it goes back to partnering. It's like you said, it's partnering with the right company.
Sorry for the confusion with difficult patients.
I knew what I meant when I said it anyway.
Good.
But hey, Bart, this has been great. Now,
you have a new role with iDoc, and
I don't know if we gave you an official title, but somewhat of a lab consultant now for iDoc. We made you, because you have so much knowledge about Three Rivers and labs, available for
30-minute chats to discuss your experience with Three Rivers.
If you're an iDoc member and want more assistance with that, we'll provide the link into our show notes. And if you'd like to learn more about Three Rivers Optical, you can visit their website at Three Rivers Optical. I believe that's the number 3, riversoptical.com. So, Bart, really appreciate your insight on that. Like I said,
I don't think we talk a lot about labs,
but I do think it's important to consider who you're partnering with, and are they going to be a good fit for your practice and your patients as well? Is it somebody that you're going to be proud
to do business with? Are they going to deliver the kind of service that your
patients have come to expect out of your practice? Because you're going to be held accountable if things go wrong at the lab, right?
Absolutely. I think it expands to every part of our business as well.
Very much agree. Well, thanks again, Bart, and thanks everyone for listening. If you'd like more information about iDoc and how we work with ODs to help them grow their practice, you can find out more at idoc.net. So thanks, Bart, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks, Steve. Absolutely.